22 of the fantasy baseball season. And here's a few pitchers I looked at on waivers this week. The first guy's Tariq Skubal of the Detroit Tigers. So Skubal, he actually has a start here today at the Pittsburgh Pirates. And obviously they're one of the worst teams in all of Major League Baseball. And I think Skubal could go out there and pitch a good ball game here today versus this Pirate team. And on the season for Skubal, not the greatest of years, obviously. 133 innings, 8-12 record, 126 hits, 63 runs, 30 homers, 45 walks, 150 Ks, 4.26 ERA, a 1.29 WHIP, and 8 quality starts on the season. In the last couple weeks here for Skubal, 10 innings, 0-1 record, 10 hits, 8 runs, 4 homers, 4 walks, 16 Ks. The ERA is obviously high at a 7.20 and a 1.40 WHIP, but this week he's a 2-start starter, and he's only really had one bad outing in his last 4 outings. Was the August 31st outing versus Oakland, so I think it was just a hiccup in the road for Skubal, and I think he bounces back and he pitches good in today's ball game, and he's been added in 5% of fantasy leagues so far today, and he's available still in 50%. So the last few games for Skubal, August 18th versus the Angels, 6 2/3 got the loss, 6 hits, 2 runs, a homer, 7 Ks, a 2.70 ERA, 0.90 WHIP in a quality start. August 25th at the Cardinals, 5 innings, no decision, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 homers, a walk, 10 Ks, a 3.60 ERA, 0.80 WHIP. And August 31st versus Oakland, like I mentioned, 5 innings, got the loss, 7 hits, 6 runs, 2 homers, 3 walks, 6 Ks, a 10.80 ERA, and a 2 WHIP. So right now he's struggling in that last outing in Skubal. But I still think he's worth the pickup, especially with the 2 starts this week, and especially at the Pirates. And like I mentioned, he's only had one bad outing in the last 5 is Skubal. So I would still go out there and give him an ad this week. The next pitcher is Freeland of the Colorado Rockies. So Freeland, he was banged up after leaving his last start, but this guy, he's pitched real well over the last few weeks here. And on the season for Freeland, 91 2/3, 5-6 record, 98 hits, 43 runs, 15 homers, 25 walks, 81 strikeouts, a 4.22 ERA, and a 1.34 WHIP with 8 quality starts. In the last couple weeks here for Freeland, 7 innings, 1-0 record, 4 hits, 3 runs, 2 homers, 2 walks, 8 Ks, a 3.86 ERA, 0.86 WHIP in a quality start. So right here, he's going out there as Freeland, and he's definitely getting the job done for this Rocky team. And in my opinion, it's very surprising that he's still available in 77% of fantasy leagues as well. The last few outings, August 21st versus the Diamondbacks, 7 innings, no decision, 6 hits, 2 runs, a homer, a walk, 10 Ks, a 2.57 ERA, a 1 WHIP in a quality start. August 27th at the Dodgers, 6 innings, got the win, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 homers, 7 Ks, a 3 ERA, 0.67 WHIP in a quality start. And then September 1st at Texas, he left that ball game with an injury. 1 inning, a run, 2 walks, a K, 9 ERA, and 2 WHIPs. So right here, he's got a tough matchup, no doubt about it, here today versus the San Francisco Giants. And I know he's been on a pretty struggling Rocky team the whole season here, is Freeland. But he goes out there, he's still getting the job done. He's still going deep into games. And I think he's a pretty valuable fantasy asset right now, even though he's in a tough division and on a poor team and pitching in a bad pitcher's ballpark. I still think Freeland's a decent ad this week. The next pitcher is Carlos Hernandez of the Kansas City Royals. So Hernandez, he was a recommended ad last week, and I'm going to go with it once again this week here. Hernandez, he's pitched very well, in my opinion, for the Royals. And on the season, 70 2/3, 5-1 record, 55 hits, 28 runs, 6 homers, 31 walks, 69 Ks, a 3.57 ERA, 1.22 WHIP in 4 quality starts. In the last couple weeks here for Hernandez, 11 2/3, 1-0 record, 6 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 9 Ks, 1.54 ERA, and an 0.77 WHIP with a quality start. So he's been one of the better pitchers in fantasy baseball over the last few weeks and about a month here. So the last couple outings for Hernandez, August 27th at the Mariners, 5 2/3, no decision, 1 hit, no runs, 6 Ks, and 0.18 WHIP. And then September 3rd versus a good Chicago White Sox team, 6 innings, got the win, 5 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks, a 3 ERA, a 1.33 WHIP. and a quality start. So right here, Hernandez, his next outing is September 9th in Baltimore, which is another matchup that favors him. And he's been real good and real surprising. I know he's not on the greatest of teams here with the Royals, but he's a pitcher that's going out there. He's going deep into games. He's getting quality starts, and he's getting some wins as well just along the way. And he's available as well, Hernandez, in still a whopping 69% of fantasy leagues. So I would give him an ad this week. The next pitcher is Adrian Hauser of the Milwaukee Brewers. So Hauser, he's been pitching pretty decent baseball on and off for the most part this season. So on the season for Hauser, 121 and a third, 8-6 record, 102 hits, 46 runs, 11 homers, 53 walks, 93 Ks, a 3.41 ERA, a 1.28 whip, and 5 quality starts. In the last couple weeks for Hauser, 14 innings, 1-1 record, 9 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks, 11 Ks, a 3.21 ERA, and an 0.86 whip with a quality start. So Hauser, he's on a first place team obviously here in the Milwaukee Brewers, and his latest outing makes him one of the hotter free agent pickups in fantasy baseball this week with a complete game 3-hit shutout versus the St. Louis Cardinals on September 4th. So the last couple outings here for Hauser, August 28th at Minnesota, 5 innings, got the loss, 6 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks, 4 Ks, a 9 ERA, a 1.80 whip. September 4th, like I mentioned, versus the Cardinals, 9 innings in that one. He went the distance, 3 hits, 7 Ks, an 0.33 whip, and a quality start. So as long as Hauser has a spot in this rotation, I think he's a pitcher that could go deep into games. He's a pitcher who obviously could get the job done like we saw versus a St. Louis Cardinal team that's definitely heating up, and he's also on a first place team here like the Brewers, and he's available still in 82% of fantasy leagues. So I would give Hauser an ad this week. The next pitcher is Alexey of the Texas Rangers. So Alexey, obviously a late call-up this season here. And the Texas Rangers, they're going to go with the kids now at this point in the season winding down, where they got nothing to play for, just to see if they got some future guys who could go out there and contribute to this team. And Alexey, so far, he's been decent in his first outing of his career. On the season, 5 innings with the win, 1 hitter, 3 walks, 4 Ks, and 0.80 whip in his only start August 30th versus the Rockies. And he's another guy that pitches today here at the Los Angeles Angels, and he's available right now, Alexey, in 95% of fantasy leagues. I think this guy could be a good probable ad this week, and I also think he could be a decent starter here the rest of the way, even though we know the Texas Rangers aren't a good ball club this season. This kid, he still could go out there, and I think he could help fantasy owners. He could go deeper into games. That NL West, obviously, they're not the greatest at hitting teams in that division. With Oakland, they're still a good team, but not the greatest at hitting. Obviously, the Angels without Rendon and Mike Trout the rest of the season, most likely. So right here, I would give him a shot as Alexey, but he's more of an ad in deeper leagues. But right here, that's the point of finding someone that could get the job done, no matter what team he's on or whatever the case may be. These are big pickups this week, especially with playoffs starting in most head-to-head leagues this week. The next pitcher is Yarborough of the Tampa Bay Rays, so another guy starting as well today. And Yarborough, he's available in 62% of fantasy leagues. On the season, 134 innings, 8-4 record, 134 hits given up, 67 runs, 21 homers, 23 walks, 104 strikeouts, a 4.50 ERA, and a 1.17 whip with 7 quality starts on the season. And the last couple weeks here for Yarborough, 10 innings pitched, 1-0 record, 10 hits, 4 runs, a homer, 2 walks, 3 Ks, a 3.60 ERA, a 1.20 whip, and a quality start. And Yarborough today, his outing, it's a favorable one, I think, in my opinion, at the Boston Red Sox. I think the Red Sox, they've been struggling of late hitting the baseball, and I think Yarborough could go out there and have another good outing, just like he did on August 31st versus the same Red Sox team. So the last few outings for Yarborough, August 25th at Philly, 4 innings, no decision, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, a 4.50 ERA, 1.75 whip. And August 31st, mentioned at the Boston Red Sox, 6 innings, got the win, 5 hits, 2 runs, a homer, 3 Ks, a 3 ERA, 0.83 whip, and a quality start. So right here, we'll see what he could do with Boston. If he could pretty much match that last outing like he had at this Red Sox team, Because I know this Tampa Bay Ray team, they got a definite chance of going deep and winning this whole thing this season here in the playoffs. And guys like Yarborough, they've been pitching pretty solid most of the season. And this is the type of pitchers you want to target as well, especially late in the season. Pitchers who are on winning ball clubs, on clubs in first place, and have a chance every fifth day to go out there and get a win and possibly a quality start as well. So I would give Yarborough an ad this week. And like I mentioned, he's available in 62% of fantasy leagues. The next pitcher I looked at this week's also another guy pitching today. A lot of guys on this list are pitching today, but that's not the reason to just add them. They've been pitching well, and they were also two starters as well this week, and it's Bailey Ober of the Minnesota Twins. So Ober, he's been added in 13% of fantasy leagues over the last couple days here on the season. 74 2/3, 2-2 record, 73 hits, 33 runs, 15 homers, 17 walks, 77 strikeouts, a 3.98 ERA, and a 1.21 whip with 2 quality starts in the last couple weeks here for Ober. 11 innings, 1-0 record, 9 hits, 2 runs, a homer, a walk, 12 Ks, a 1.64 ERA, and an 0.91 whip with a quality start. So right here, he's not in the greatest divisions in terms of hitting the baseball. You got the White Sox, obviously. More still got weak hitting teams like the Cleveland Indians in that division, the Kansas City Royals, and the Detroit Tigers. So the last few outings here for Ober. August 17th versus the Indians, 6 innings, got the loss, 5 hits, 2 runs, a homer, 3 Ks, a 3 ERA, 0.83 whip, and a quality start. August 25th at Boston, 5 innings, 4 hits, a walk, 7 Ks, a 1 whip. And August 30th at Detroit, 6 innings, got the win, 5 hits, 2 runs, a homer, 5 Ks, a 3 ERA, and an 0.83 whip with a quality start. So Ober, his next outing, like I mentioned today, at the Cleveland Indians. And I think he could go out there once again and pitch a quality start, possibly get a win. And he's a guy that can help fantasy teams, in my opinion. And he's available in 70% of fantasy leagues. The next pitcher is Jake Rizzy of the Houston Astros. So Rizzy, he's been up and down this season. And I know he's a pitcher that don't go deep into ball games this year. Here's Rizzy, but he's still on the season as a pretty decent ERA. And the last couple weeks as well, he's been pitching pretty good on the season for Rizzy. 89 2/3, 6-7 record, 79 hits, 43 runs, 16 homers, 31 walks, 82 strikeouts, a 4.32 ERA, a 1.23 whip, and 2 quality starts. And the last couple weeks here, like I mentioned, 10 innings, 0-1 record, 8 hits, 3 runs, a homer, 2 walks, 12 Ks, a 2.70 ERA, and a 1 whip here for Rizzy. So Rizzy right now, he's on one of the better teams in Major League Baseball here in the Houston Astros. And right now, he's available still with Rizzy in 65% of fantasy leagues. So the last few games for him, August 21st versus Seattle, 5 2/3, got the win, 4 hits, a run, a homer, 4 walks, 8 Ks, a 1.59 ERA, a 1.41 whip. August 27th at Texas, 5 innings, no decision, 6 hits, 2 runs, a homer, 5 Ks, 3.60 ERA, and a 1.20 whip. In September 1st at Seattle, 5 innings, got the loss, 2 hits, a run, 2 walks, 7 Ks, 1.80 ERA, and an 0.80 whip. So right here, his next outing's tomorrow versus the Seattle Mariners. We got a decent outing is Rizzy. The only thing, when you're going to get him on your fantasy team, don't expect him to go 7-8 innings into game, but expect 5 or 6 innings, decent outings. Not a high strikeout guy as well, even though the last 3 games for him, he does have 20 strikeouts is Rizzy. But right now, I think he's a pretty solid ad, and he's a guy who would give a shot this week. The next pitcher is Robert Wick of the Chicago Cubs. So right here, Robert Wick, he's been seeing save opportunities over the last couple weeks here. And obviously, we know the Chicago Cubs blew it all up at the Major League trade deadline. And on the season here for Wick, obviously, he just came back, 11 2/3 only, 3 saves under his belt, 8 hits, 4 runs, 6 walks, 15 strikeouts, a 3.09 ERA, and a 1.20 whip. So obviously, the Cubs, they're a bad team. They got rid of everyone at the trade deadline. But hey, a closer is a closer, especially at this point of the season here in fantasy baseball with the playoffs starting up this week. And Wick, he's available in 91% of fantasy leagues, and he might not get many save opportunities, no doubt about it, especially on the Chicago Cub team, who plays in a pretty tough division with a few tough teams like the Reds, obviously, the Brewers who win first, and the Cardinals who have emerged over the last few weeks here. But right now, if you need some cheap saves, Wick, he's available in 91% of fantasy leagues, and I would give him a shot. And the pitcher I looked at this week's Carlo West, another closer here for the Colorado Rockies. So Estes, he's owned only in 10% of fantasy leagues as well, so he's available obviously in 90. And on the season for Estes, 50 and a third, 2-3 record, 5 saves, 51 hits, 22 runs, 7 homers, 17 walks, 51 strikeouts, a 3.93 ERA, a 1.35 whip in the last couple weeks here. He's getting many opportunities right now as the closer over there in Colorado. 7 innings, 3 saves, 6 hits, 1 run, a homer, a walk, 9 Ks, a 1.29 ERA, and a 1 whip. So right now he's getting opportunities like I mentioned, and he's making the most of them as Estes. So right here we're Wick and Estes. If you need closes, these are 2 guys pretty much available in all fantasy leagues here at this point in the season. But the only down thing with them, like I mentioned, they're not on winning ball clubs, and they play in pretty tough divisions. But if you need saves, these are guys to get. So those are a few pitchers I look to add this week here in week 22 of the fantasy baseball season as the playoffs start in many head-to-head fantasy leagues.